That's no moon. It's a space station.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Just a few things before we get started today. This Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Time, we will be doing our next webinar on Project Crystal Night, otherwise known as Project Serpo, which I'm sure if you've listened to this podcast, you've heard Aaron and I reference that book multiple times, that book being The Secret Journey to Planet Serpo. It's about a mission where 12 astronauts went and spent 10 years on another planet in the 60s and 70s under the Kennedy administration. And we've done quite a deep dive, and we're going to break it down for you guys, and we'll have a lot of fun with that one. But if you haven't signed up for our Patreon, it's only $5 a month. That link is below in the description. And without wasting any more time, today we are joined by our good friend Jena Frey, who we met at the Sunfire Festival last year. A friend of mine had a session with her. She was there. I don't even think you were there doing sessions. I think you were just there as an attendee, right? And you were just guided to offer sessions. But for those who don't know, she's an intuitive healer, and a friend of mine had a session with her and was raving about it. And I was trying to book a session and we kept missing each other. I was so strongly guided to connect with her that I actually flew out to Colorado and had a session in person, which actually ended up being a very life-changing session for me, which we can get into later if we'd like. But she, like I said, she's an intuitive healer, but so much more. It's almost impossible to put a label on what she does because it's specific to the individual. And, you are really working into like galactic and interdimensional realms. And who knows what can come through in a session pertaining to the individual, but it's next level stuff. And you work a lot with the dragons and the elementals and all the other beings that come through. And I know that they have messages as well. So we're just going to kind of, turn it over to you and let you introduce yourself a little bit, and even how you learned this about yourself, how you knew that you could do this and you had this ability to help heal people. And we can go from there.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you, Tyler. And hello. So good to see you.
Yes. Great to see you too.
Yeah, great to have you here. Yes.
My experience with this work goes all the way back to my childhood. So there's actually a whole lifelong of experience and education that's got me to where I am now, like all of us, right? But I started seeing other beings and other dimensional realms on this earth while I was living my earthly experience when I was a kid. And I saw them in cartoon form, actually.
Really?
They would show up in cartoon form. And it was actually really scary for me. And I didn't have any teachers around me that knew what was happening. So I was always told, it was my imagination or it was a dream. But seeing these characters was just as real to me as, the chair sitting in the room or us talking or, anything else that was going on in my environment. There would just be these extra beings, making noises. Like they didn't speak my language. So they were very tribal-like. And it's interesting. I was born and raised in Boulder, Colorado. So I was brought up in a very predominantly white, upper class kind of area, small mountain town kind of vibe. But there was a lot of different spiritual healers here already. So I had a lot of exposure to spiritual diversity, not in just religion, but different types of healing modalities and things. Which didn't really interest me that much, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I was more connected to nature. So I was actually brought up Catholic. And I went to my mom when I was 12 and denounced the church, denounced any association with the religion, and told her that my God was nature and that's where I wanted to connect with that source that we sometimes call God.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So then I actually, after that, into my teen years, I got tortured a little bit by some darker beings. And I had to kind of find my way in that. And one of the most profound teachers that ever showed up for me was about when I was around between like maybe 15 and 17. And I was being tormented by this one being that was actually physically assaulting me in my sleep. So it might look like a hand over my mouth where I can't breathe or scream or call out, but nobody in the room. So I could physically feel what was happening to me and unable to respond to it. So it was really scary. And again, no teachers around to really help guide me and tell me what was going on or how to deal with it. So I ended up having this dream that was 7 nights long. I went to sleep and woke up each day in this dreamscape. And I was met by a pack of wolves. And I lived with the wolves for 7 days. And we'd wake up in the morning and they'd show me their morning routine. We traveled through the forest in a day. They showed me how to hunt. They fed me and took care of me and kept me warm. And this went on for 7 days. And at the end of the 7 days, they said, okay, we've taught you. And they said, the way to face this being is with no fear. If you fear it, you give it power. If you don't fear it, it will go away. And they dropped me off in a city. And this being came up to me right away, tried to trick me by making it look like it was a friend of mine. It came up to me and then got in my face. It was like really ugly and gross, like this really crazy looking thing. And I stood up to it and I looked it right in the face and I put my heart out and I showed no fear at all. And this thing just went right down into the pavement. Never saw it again.
Wow.
So that a lot of my teaching came from whatever you want to call it, the spirit realm or whatever realm. And that was my first teacher. And then finally in my 20s, I moved up to Vail Valley, Colorado, and really got into the nature scene, did all kinds of outdoor sports, took an EMT class, learned, wilderness survival, and got really earthy up there. And then I also took courses in like yoga and belly dancing and sign language, so I could learn to speak with my hands. And then I ended up going into a massage therapy program where I started meeting more of my spiritual teachers. And that started off with a Reiki practitioner. And then my path, I just kept meeting new teachers along the way. So I've taken sort of all of that training that I've had and my knowing from when I was a kid. And now I just channel it. I guess channeling it, I let the energy move through me and then see what comes out.
Yeah.
And when my intentions are good, my heart is the right place, and I'm grounded, then I can pull some really helpful stuff through for other people as well.
Yeah, and there's so much there as far as the wolves. And so it was like the same dream you would fall back asleep into every night and then wake up and then go about your normal day and then fall back asleep into the same dream, or?
No, it was Earth time, it was one night. But in the dream time, it was 7 days.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
I see. I misunderstood that. So yeah, as far as facing those demonic entities, whatever you call them, I've had my fair share of experience there. And that's exactly what happens. Actually, the one time I finally showed no fear, one of them disappeared the exact same way, just like somebody pulled a curtain down. and it just like went away. So it's interesting, but yeah, as soon as when they know you're scared, then they have control over you. So they
Mhm.
lose control over you when you lose fear of them. So
Mhm.
that's very interesting. Um, and as
Yeah,
far
because
as
the only
go ahead.
the only power they can have is the power that you give them.
You give them, exactly. That's their food source. So
Mhm.
that's what I always say. Like the people, so that's why people that have a lot of fear in their system, they're basically broadcasting themselves as a food source to these types of entities because they can see that they're like, oh wow, there's a perfect food source right there.
Right.
I'm gonna go to that person because I know they're gonna be super scared of me and feed me, and they're gonna just keep doing that, until you learn to protect yourself and not be afraid anymore and take your power back, essentially. So
Right.
it's actually a teacher. It's a perfect example of how the dark is a great catalyst and a teacher to get you to step into your sovereignty and to wake up and learn certain lessons.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Very true.
So as far as I mean, did you learn how to protect yourself? Because I know they show up in different ways, in different forms all the time. And as far as protection goes, is that something that you were just kind of naturally able to do, or did you have to learn modalities from these teachers and new ways to protect yourself doing this work? Because I know, I'm sure you attract a lot of these entities when you do this type of work.
I don't know if attract is the right word for that, but yeah, I've had a lot of training in protection and how to set up protection, but then I realized at one point that the whole act of setting up protection is fear in a way,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah,
like today I said, oh, I felt like I needed some extra protection today around this, right? I'm going to look at that later and see what that's about, because I feel like if you're not in fear, first of all, like we just said, and you're not giving that energy power by being in fear, then what do you need to protect yourself with? But what I found is that the simple fact that we have life force energy, that is protection.
Mhm.
It's almost just like a realization, like I don't need protection. If you're surrounding yourself in love, if you're good intentions, if you're putting out all these positive vibrations and waves from your field, and you're supporting your life force energy and trying to live in a healthy way and thrive and be strong, then that alone is protection. So it's not like you have to go, okay, I mean, you can. It's good to have practices, of course, to help guide your mind and bring you into a place where you can be focused. So, there's guided meditations and stuff. Surround yourself with a bubble, or roses, are a big symbol of protection, whatever that is. I mean, it can be anything, like I have some crystals here, like this I could intentionally make my protection, right? And the only thing that's making those things protective is my intention
Mhm.
for protection, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like you can kind of bypass all that and just go, I am protected. I'm thriving life force energy. I have life force energy. This is a very powerful gift, right?
Right.
Life force energy, huge. There's a lot of beings that don't have access to it, and that's what latches on, right? Or might be beings with life force energy where their life force is so diminished that they feel like they need to kind of pull it off of somebody else who might be a little bit more vibrant.
Right.
But I feel like, and I could be wrong, this is just my own thing, but I feel like you can bypass all this stuff just knowing that your intention, whatever you're setting for yourself, is your protection. So if you think something has power over you to hurt you, then I think it's time to look at that and say, why? How? Right?
Right.
Mhm.
And like, why do I feel like that can hurt me right now?
Yeah.
Because
Right.
if we're all energy, even if our physical being is destroyed, there's still nothing to fear, right? Because we can't die.
Right. It's all energy.
Right.
What is there to fear? Right.
We just interviewed someone last week who said multiple times knowledge is the first line of defense. So understanding, like you have to understand that this stuff exists and what's possible.
That's true.
And otherwise you won't know any better, any different, and you will be susceptible to attack and vulnerable. So so having the knowledge that it is possible to not need protection, but just to be in that frequency is the first, you have to do that first. And then everything else falls in place after that. But being at the receiving end of these attacks for years, I've tried that, and I've really tried to not put up protection. And it seemed like, it's been this game, and it's been like training for me, but it seemed like every time I would like try to set that intention, like, no, I'm not going to put up protection out of fear. I'm not going to do that. It seemed like that's whenever I would get attacked. It was like as soon as I let my guard down and stopped intentionally putting up the protection, it was like walking out into the battlefield and just dropping my armor, So, it is a spiritual war, and I see both sides of it, and I've really experimented with both sides of it. And I think as you get further along in your journey and more experienced, I guess you could say, then it works. You understand yourself. You get to know your body and know yourself to an extent to where you know when you're vibrating at a frequency when you don't need to put protection up. And sometimes I know I'm not at my best, and sometimes I feel like I need some extra help. I think it all depends on, it's all circumstantial. Would you agree?
That's true. I agree.
Right.
But I think the inner work is the key, because like you can just keep putting up protection all day, every day. And it's like, but if you're not doing the inner work and you're not healing and like generally raising your vibration and strengthening your field, because that's the real protection in my view. Like the other stuff is like they're tools that can be used, but like if it's coming from a place of fear, like you said, well, then you're actually in fear, and that means you're in the very vibration that's going to be what you're attracting or mirroring on the outside of you. Whatever you holding inside of you is what's mirrored on the outside, right? Whatever frequency you're vibrating at is what you're a match to. So if you're a match to fear, where you're always like, oh my God, something's always around the corner, something's going to be attacking me, I need to be like, then it's like, all right, well then that's what you're a match to, and that's what's going to happen to you constantly. But not that being said, yeah, it's important to realize there are these things, but it's like the more you can raise your frequency to a state of closer to unconditional love, closer to love and joy, bliss, living your joy, living your bliss. Like, what is your general state every day? Are you miserable? Are you always like afraid of something? Are you always angry? Are you always blah blah blah? Well, that means there you got some healing to do. You got to step into your sovereignty, realize like there's something within me that needs to be looked at, instead of always thinking it's something outside of me that's a threat, right?
Right.
So there's people that fall into the trap of like, it's always something outside of me that I need to protect from. Well, no, actually the answer is within you. Like everything always comes back to within you. So the more you can do that inner work, then the less you'll need to keep like always focusing on these external things, just to put it generally. But that's my point of view. But it's also important to understand these things as well, and to do what you can,
That's all very true. I mean, I agree with everything you just said. I think the tricky part for a lot of people is, when you start to think about the mind control aspect. So am I afraid of this? All those thoughts, like you said, the mindset, the energy, the vibe we're putting out, right? How much of that thought process is subliminally controlled, So
right.
What part of that is really you, because if you're really in touch with yourself, I think, and done like the kind of work that you're talking about, Aaron, then you're obviously not going to attract that much stuff, right? And you're going to be making choices to keep your mind sharp and your body healthy like not watching mainstream news TV, right?
That's right.
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 And I mean that stuff is so toxic and
So
so
bad.
controlling. You know, my sometimes my son stays with my mom. When, you know, once in a while she'll babysit him, and I noticed, you know, something really strange in him one day. He was like acting really fearful. We went to an amusement park and he's usually like, let's go, you know, and he didn't want to ride any of the rides, and he was acting really, and I was like, where is this coming from, you know? And he was at my mom's house a couple days before, and I said, was Grandpa watching the news, you know, while you were there? He's like, well, yeah, a little bit, but I wasn't watching it. And I'm like, but it was on in the same room. And he's like, yeah. And, you know, and I have a really strict rule with my parents that when my son is there, there's no news on the TV at all. No mainstream news. They're not allowed to play it around him. Right?
That's a great rule. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, wow, for a brief, you know, couple hours, he was exposed to the sounds and probably the colors because of flashing screen, not paying attention so much, but his obviously subliminal mind was picking up stuff, because we all know, right, that there's repetitive words in that programming that speaks to the subliminal mind, and all these other things that they're the lights and the colors and all the things, the sounds. Just 2 hours, you know, the next day, my son's like in fear all day.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Well, yeah. So there's a lot there, and you know, there's the subliminal messaging, right? There's underlying frequencies that sometimes just play throughout the broadcast that actually will. I mean, they're mind control frequencies, right? So you make a valid point when you say, like, when somebody, you know, sometimes you don't know if a thought is your own or not. That's why, you know, that's why we do this work and have these conversations, so you can start asking yourself those questions whenever you do have negative thoughts or whatever it is. But what I experience with like mainstream media or any type of news actually that's talking about anything in the political arena, or just like surface level stuff that keeps us divided intentionally, that type of information, it's all transmitted at a certain frequency. And I was at a friend's house. I was staying with a friend recently, and he wasn't even watching the mainstream media, but he had this like this YouTube channel on that was it was basically like the news. And it felt the same as the mainstream media. And I was like, man, turn that stuff off.
And you can feel it. You
Yeah.
just hit it right there, Tyler. You can feel it.
Yeah, I felt it. And I was like, man, why are you allowing that in your home? And he laughed, and he's like, what do you mean? I was like, you're allowing, it's like, I felt like it just came out of me naturally. Like, you're allowing something else into your home that doesn't belong whenever you turn that on.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to describe it. So yeah, it's understandable that your son has that reaction. And I'm sorry if you weren't done telling that story, but
oh no, that I was just making that point that it doesn't take very long for that stuff to change the way you're thinking or even acting the next day. Right.
Subconsciously programming, you don't even realize it.
Yeah.
So there's the actual words they're saying, which is a lot of times usually fear-based. And then there's all the subconscious stuff going on, which is even more powerful. And you don't even realize you're being heavily programmed. And then you're just like your son just showed, it's now you don't even realize that was the reason it's putting you in this state of extreme fear.
Yeah, because you think it's you. You think it's you. You know?
Yeah.
But it's a little program running in your subconscious brain, right? So with that, like, there's ways to protect against that, right? I mean, you can get like sun guide, some EMF stuff around the TV. You can blue light glasses, you know, there's a lot of things out there now that we can protect ourselves from. You know, that'd be cool if you could, like, if there was a frequency button on the dial, you know, the volume control, where you could change the frequency. Yeah. And then make like all the tones maybe might switch and like somehow neutralize the frequencies they're putting through and be able to watch it without being exposed to that. I don't know, but
yeah. Well, what I like to do, those are all great. What I like to do, because you know how you go out in public and they'll have like CNN on at all these different places, you know, at the airport, at wherever. To me, it's like a comedy show now, because it is, right? It's all jokes.
Yeah.
It's all fake. It's all, So that's literally how I view mainstream news, mainstream media now, is like, it's a comedy show. It's hilarious to me, so I'm like laughing. I like, oh my God, this is hilarious. Look what they're saying,
Right.
they're trying to convince you of this. It's almost like it. So, but that's like me. I view that as like transmuting that what's meant to be negative into a positive, because now I'm laughing. Laughter is like one of the highest vibration,
And look at and see, you're protecting yourself from that with your laughter.
Right.
Right. And that's protection
your
in
intention,
and of
and that's
itself.
your protection. That's all you need. Now that may not work for somebody else. Someone else might need to carry a cross, put the cross up, or whatever works.
Whatever works
it's all,
for you.
Anything's just a suggestion to our mind to help us, do whatever it is we think we're doing.
Right.
Right. Right.
Whenever people book a session with you, obviously you probably see all types of different stuff. I know when I came to you, I was in rough shape, and I knew I was. I knew that I had a chink in my armor and something came in, and I knew that something was there, but I also couldn't do anything about it myself. I knew I needed help, and we're all here on this planet to help each other.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so don't be afraid to ask for help ever. But I understood I had something going on, and it was actually worse than I realized after, I met with you, but there were some entities that necessarily weren't attached to me, but there was one that specifically was working through other people to get to me, and I noticed that happening. So, what kind of things do you see with people that book sessions with you? Is this pretty common with people that they're carrying something and running these programs?
Tyler, I've seen so many things. I wish I could record everything in a chip in my head and then like play it for you. I was like, wow, like so many things. But yeah, I mean, that kind of thing is sort of common. I want to say, like, it's like you just said, we need each other, right? So we're all vibrating at different frequencies and have different experience and energy. It's like such an orchestra. It's really beautiful. We all have our own tone, right? And rhythm. And so, we met at the festival, and then you felt so called that you came all the way out here to Colorado, right? To see me. That's not because I'm like this magical, mystical being. It's not because I have, this amazing training that nobody else has access to or anything like that. It's because I have a frequency that hit a frequency in you that went, oh, that's toning. That can tone this piece over here that's not feeling off key, right?
Right.
So, for whatever reason, you and I had our energies intermingled and went, oh, here's like some energy that I can heal from, and I get to heal from your energy. And so that was like this beautiful orchestrated moment that we got to meet, and then you felt called to that, and then we got to have this awesome experience together, right? And because you can follow your intuition and I can follow my intuition, that was really we together, our frequencies came together and made that a really powerful session, right? So that's what I feel like. I don't give out cards. I don't market. I'm not, doing all this stuff on social media, because the only thing that I need to do is send out the beacon that here I have these skills. I have this, whatever it is, gift, whatever you want to call it. And I want to help people. So I put out this beacon that whoever can receive healing from me, let them show up in my life.
Right.
And that's how it's happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't need to go searching for it or anything. It's just, and that's what happened with us. It's like,
right. Yeah, absolutely.
You heard that beacon.
Right. And just for the audience listening, it was me that reached out to you to come on the show. It's not like you were like, hey, I need to get on and, sell my product. It wasn't anything like that. It was quite the opposite. It's the experience that I've had and close friends have had with you. That I know you're doing very important work, and I think people should know who you are and discover what you're capable of, and book sessions with you, because you can help a lot of people. You're very powerful, in my opinion. At least what you do in the sessions is very powerful. For one, just a quick testimony. Before I saw you, I was experiencing for a couple of years, actually, I had these random hives that started. Like I never had hives my whole life, random hives, and it got worse and worse every year. Every time I went out in the sun, I would have hives, and it was like becoming unbearable. I couldn't even enjoy. I was constantly miserable. Um, and through the session with you, we got to the root, the energetic root of that, and in a way that it was palpable, it was tangible. I could feel it, and we removed it. And I don't remember exactly what happened, but from that moment on, I have not had hives, and that was what last year or whenever I was there.
Yeah.
So it was about a year ago,
Yeah.
and it like overnight from that moment that went away. A physical ailment went away through an energetic healing, which we know can happen,
Yeah.
but it doesn't always happen with all the healers. And we somehow got to the root of it, or you got to the root of it, and that alone was worth the price of the trip in itself, because that changed things exponentially for me, because I'm no longer walking around like itching. That's a horrible feeling. So yeah, that's just one example of what you do. But another thing, I want to shift this just a little bit. Something that came up in my session, and everybody I've known that's booked a session with you, is the dragons. You seem
Interesting. I wasn't keeping track.
uh, you work a lot with the dragons, it seems like, and even that artwork behind you, whether or not it's intentional or not, I
Yeah.
see dragons in that.
Yeah.
So maybe we can talk about the dragon realm and how their prominence in this energy healing, and what they're here doing for humanity right now.
Okay. So it's not, I mean, I do and have worked with dragons. It's more, whenever I set up a session, I ask any kindred helping spirits that want to help, right? So sometimes the dragons show up. And then I've worked with a specific dragon for myself that's helped me with a lot of my journey work. So that, that comes from a lot of training that I went through in order to learn how to navigate the journeys and the waking dream stuff, whatever you want to call it, my visions. I had a lot of training from a really exceptional woman who helped me learn how to sort of navigate that world, because you can get lost in it.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. So yeah, so there's one dragon that I work with that I just, I mean, you think of like a dog or a cat or a pet you have, or somebody that you love that you're really to, and they become that close to my heart. Like I can taste, feel, smell everything about these creatures that show up. It's so tangible. And so they almost become, I'm not going to say pets because they come and go at their own free will. I'm not summoning anything, I got rid of my altar a long time ago. A lot of people have an altar, which is a beautiful thing. And if you can do an altar in a good way, it's a beautiful thing. But I didn't feel a need to have that, because for me, I love the freedom of just seeing who wants to show up and whatnot. So when you say that, you kind of mentioned the dragon thing a couple of days ago, and since then, dragons have been showing up all over the place and really wanting to come through with something. So I've been sort of bombarded or inundated with dragons. And I sat down, when I sat down to do this, I was like, oh yeah, look at that. I got dragons on my wall. How funny. But even my son, he didn't even know. And yesterday we were at this awesome place called Invent HQ, which is a free crafting library. And they have a 3D printer. And he was looking for things he wanted to 3D print. And he found an articulate dragon. And he's like, I want that. So, they've just been coming in. But
Yeah.
so sometimes they come and sometimes they don't. And I think that just depends on who I'm working with. So maybe part of my beacon attracts other people with dragon influences or helping spirits. I don't like to say helping spirits because it almost makes them like a separate identity, where in this earthly world, we have sort of this idea of separateness and space. But in that world, everything can shapeshift, right? In and out of itself. So I don't like to call things like spirit or person or, in that world, because it's so, like Aaron said, you can transmute, it transmutes.
Right.
So sometimes there's dragons, sometimes there's not. I mean, I could tell you so many stories. Sometimes there's aliens, sometimes there's beings, that show up in that way and give information. I had a huge one before the solar eclipse. That was phenomenal. And yeah, so I think that has to do with the beacon and who I'm called to. So I think you have dragon energy if that came through for you. And if you have this circle of people that that were drawn to me and had dragon stuff, then see that that's the beacon. That's that energy I'm putting out, right? For those who I can help.
Now, whenever you do work with the dragon realm, I mean, have you learned anything about their world as far as, like, we understand dragons are a real thing in our history, and they show up in the zodiac, the Chinese zodiac calendar, and that's not by accident. That all why would all the other animals exist except for the dragon? They existed. So do you see them as like going to be re-merging with our reality in a physical sense? And that you might not have the answer to these questions, or whenever you work with them, it's just a very much more of an astral realm, like type of thing.
Hard to say what's real and what's not real, right? But yeah, it's more of I would say it's more of an astral realm thing. But personally, I believe that they already can physical manifest themselves if they want to, at any time, pretty much anywhere. Kind of like any of those other creatures that we laughably think, oh, that's not real, when it's completely biologically possible, right? Like Sasquatch, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Sasquatch, like the way I know Sasquatch is Sasquatch can reappear and disappear out of portals all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you might see him in the forest and then poof, it's gone because he just jumped into another portal, right? So they're like these magnificent astral travelers. And I think dragons fall into that. They know how, if they want to. I'd have to ask, I guess, why they would want to show up physically. I feel like that would open up them to a lot of attack. I mean,
Right.
people would want to study them and kill them, like they did.
Right. I mean, it's just more of a curiosity. If you don't have the answer to it, it's okay. I'm just more or less curious. Just because when you're there and they're showing up all the time, I don't know how well you get to know them, and
Well, I can say this about the ones that I've worked with. They're definitely not like scary creatures. They're so kind and they're gentle, and I've flown with them, so I know what it feels like when they fly, and so I've felt them in that way, that they're just really, really want to help. Like they're like healers, right? They want to do good. They want to help. They want to, they're on our side. But that's the dragons. I always say kindred helping spirits.
right.
I don't invite, anything besides that. And then when I do see energy show up that look demonic or monstrous or whatever, I know that it's not a demon. Like, it's not going to eat me or something, it's not going to possess me. Like, it's an energy that's showing up. So, okay, I'll put it this way. This is kind of what I've figured out for this, because it's really hard. It's hard not to sound mystical. And then, I do believe there's a science to this in a way. And I think what I do, what I've been open to since a kid, and then what I've been trained to hone is we all sense energy, right? So like, I have crystals here, I have sticks, we have all these things in front of us. I'm sitting on a couch. We've been taught and learned the language of this is that and this is that, right? So we identify these things and we label them, like there's sticks, right? So my brain learns this has energy. These sticks are putting out energy right now. They feel hard, they make noise, right? So my brain knows this is a stick. We call it a stick or a piece of wood or whatever you want, all the names we give it. So when I go in, like say I did for you, Tyler, or someone else, when someone comes to me, then I can tune into their energy field. And somehow my brain is able to interpret the energy frequency. And then my brain makes a picture of it. So my body is feeling, okay, there's this frequency energy in here. This sounds like a stick, a piece of wood, right? And then my brain makes a picture. And then I'm able to go, oh, I see a piece of wood. Does that make sense?
Right.
So with the dragons, through whatever programming I've gotten or education or whatnot, I know that a dragon looks like, this big creature that might have beautiful scales, colors, and is magical and has wings and all these things, right? Energetically, that's how it's chosen to represent itself in our world, right? So that's how our brains identify that energy. So that's how we know it's a dragon, that's a dragon, that's a dragon. So even in the astral, then when you're tuning into someone else's energy or frequency, then your brain can make a picture of it. Or mine can, at least. I don't know if yours can, but mine can. And I believe that everybody has the capability to do that.
Right.
But I could be wrong.
So when you said that when I mentioned the dragons to you a few days ago, you said that you were kind of being bombarded. The dragons started coming in. Is there anything that they would like to share with us? Is that how this works, or do they have like a message?
If you're comfortable with it, I mean, I can tune in and see if anything comes through.
Yeah,
if you want to do that.
You all right with that, Aaron?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I mean, this is being recorded, right? So you guys can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it looks too crazy, you can just delete it or whatever.
Oh,
okay.
no.
So, Aaron, Tyler knows that when I do this work, sometimes I start speaking like in tongue. I don't know what you want to call it. People call it love language or light language, or it's just a channel language that comes through. I just call it spirit language, and then I'll say it, and then it's like I can interpret it in English. Does that make sense?
That's amazing. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's helpful for sure. So, okay. So, I'm just going to close my eyes. My eyes you might see them like roll back. If they do that, don't get freaked out. It's just, having your eyes closed and, it's dream state. It's REM.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's just set the space first. So just check in with your breath and your heart and intention for this. So with kindness and gentleness, and in alignment with our higher selves, in alignment with the highest good for ourselves, the highest good for the world, and the highest good for all beings. We invite any messages, wisdom, knowledge, or healings that the Dragon Realm would like to share with us through this podcast, Tyler and Aaron, Journey to Truth. Any truths that the Dragon Realm would like to share at this time, I offer myself as a interpreter for this message and frequency of healing and whatever way it might want to come through, if it chooses to. So just sinking in, breathing into the lower belly so that we're nice and grounded together. I want to know that I have both of your permission. So Aaron and Tyler, just having your permission to go on with this for your show.
Yes, you do.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm singing out and I'm calling past the mountains to the dragons. I'm calling out to them. I'm asking them to please hear us. It appears that they have a birth happening right now. So it looks like there's a baby being born they're in the mountain. They're low down in the mountain. Whew. So it's a celebration day for them. They're celebrating because they're having a baby. And I'm letting them know that we do not want to disturb them in any way, that if there's any dragons that want to be a part of this while they're having their ceremonial blessings of this baby coming into the world, if there's any dragons available, we do not want to disturb their celebration or this special day for them. Whew. So there's this one that is stepping up. So he's coming out the side of the mountain. And it looks like a very old dragon because I see it's almost like a beard, like a white beard from the dragon's face. And I'm just saying, welcome. It's so nice to see you. Thank you so much for being here. He says there's a lot of those out there that are not going to believe any of this. But he says to those of you who know that we are here and that we can speak through Jena in this way today. So we're celebrating today. Celebrate your babies. Celebrate your babies. Says you humans take childbirth for granted. You really do. Not all of you, but a great majority of you. Do not see the value in your children. And he says, shame on you. Shame on you for that. Anywhere you look in nature, no other species neglects and abuses their children the way you humans have, except for extraordinary circumstances or when nature's become very unbalanced. We all look after our young with diligence. Yes. No. Now don't let me shame you, the dragon says. You are all doing the best you know how. But it's time you need to taste the fire. Like us dragons taste the fire on our lips. You need to learn to become more efficient with your energy. You burn it up all around you. You rushed your children like with fire. You rushed your children to grow up. Look at how long we have been around. Way before you. Way before you. So starting today, celebrate your children like we celebrate this new birth of our dragon brother. This dragon, this baby dragon is a helper of your world. But how can we teach our dragon to want to help you if you're not helping yourselves or your own children? It's okay. You want to be on your screens. You want to be smart. You want to figure things out. It's okay. It's the human way. Go ahead. But don't forget to stand on the ground every day. Don't forget to connect with nature. You're an earthly being. If you don't connect with the earth, you're going to get all out of balance and hurt yourself and those you love. He says, that's all I have to say. And he's moving back, and then I feel another coming forth. So I'm going to check in with you, Tyler and Aaron, and see if you want me to continue from there, or if you'd like to stop, because I can have it go either way. But this is sort of a little intermission point.
I sure. I would love to hear what the other one has to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Just to say, the one that I was just speaking to, not only did he have a white beard, I can explain that he had an almost deep emerald green on his back, a silvery gray on the sides, a little bit of pink on the belly, like almost just a little line of pink. Yeah, I can't wait. Beautiful claws that in our world we would probably hunt them for and try to make out a jewelry or something. Beautiful claws, so big and long, like horns on an animal from our world. Their claws. I could feel his heart, and he's got a really solid heart. Okay, so I'm thanking you. Thank you so much. Oh, and he's just so excited for this baby. So excited. It's like a proud grandpa. So there's a younger one stepping up now. And this one is showing itself to be a little green. No pun intended, or maybe so. And I'm just telling this little one that we come in peace, that we mean no harm, that my heart is neutral to its message, and that we want to be here in acceptance of them. This one is just really showing us the spirit of play. Kind of like what we were talking about, like having no fear, just being really curious. And this little one just tells me with this very neutral heart, like there's not sadness or grief or fear around this, but she says, my mom died. And she wants to connect with those of us that are motherless or fatherless or lost a parent somehow. Oh, she says, like the grandpa, like Dragon said, these children, we need to care for them. She says, I'm okay because I have my village. I have all the other dragons here taking care of me. But a lot of your kids don't have that. She offers this song for those of you who have experienced the loss of a parent to connect with that frequency. And she says that frequency will help attract the tribe to you. She says, start dreaming of your tribe, your people, your family. Who start to dream what they would look like? How would they show up for you? How would they sound? What would they smell like? Where would they live? Where would they be coming from? How would they find you? How would they travel to you? Maybe you have a crystal that you can put in your window, or maybe there's a light you can have on in your home. Something with your intention to signal to your family, your tribe, whatever you want to call it, your people that are going to come care for you and want to care for you. And she says the first step, though, is that you need to want to be cared for. There's a lot of parentless children that grow up into being adults. The way they protect themselves is by pushing people away. And she says, but you don't have to do that anymore. She says, you can call on her on the dragon realm. She says, you can call her Kiwi to make it easy for us. Kiwi. She says, I'll hear you. Because us dragons can feel your intentions like you would never believe. Faster than any Wi-Fi you have. Faster than any network. We can feel your hearts. We can heal your hearts. So when you go to sleep tonight, listen for us. Call us into your dreams. We're there. She says that there's so many dragons here that would like the opportunity to speak. But it's really important for her and them to get back to the celebration. And she hopes that this has been an inspiration to all of those who tune into it. And she's just saying, just be nice to each other. Be kind. Don't take that out of context. If somebody's hurting you, come on. Have common sense. But the more kindness that you offer and share and put out, the more acceptance. If you meet people with neutrality and openness, you won't run into a lot of people trying to hurt you anymore. But she says, of course, always be on guard. Us dragons are the most gentlest, kindest creatures you'll probably ever meet. But if you try to hurt us, you know what we can do, because that's how we've been depicted in a lot of your stories. And it's true. We can do a lot of harm if we want to. But we choose to use those things for good. Like to burn up old energies that aren't serving anyone with our fire. Or help break you out of your human selves with our claws. There's so many opportunities for us to work together. We can hear your hearts. We can feel your intentions. And if you're too stuck in your heads, if you're not in your hearts and you're not working with your intentions, we're probably not going to pay much attention to you. Not that we are superior to you. But we are very intentional beings ourselves. And our purpose is for healing. I'm very proud this baby being born today is my brother. I'm going to be a very good sister to him. And that was her leaving and going back to her little baby brother. I'm stepping away from the space of their mountain. And I'm getting this big, beautiful butterfly symbol, almost like a mandala, as I am leaving the space. That's part of their protection. And she reminds me of a lesson I learned from a butterfly the other day. If butterflies aren't scared, then why should we be? That again. Woo.
Thank you.
Hear that.
That was
Thank you. That was amazing.
That was beautiful. I loved every second of it. I'm gonna be hitting up Kiwi tonight before bed.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
was incredible.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting
Thank
all
you.
that, and I really resonated with it, and like the first dragon said, like there's going to be people that won't believe it, and I'm sure people will tune in and think this is nonsense, but we're past that point. I think we're past that point. I just don't care what people think anymore, to be honest, and I thought it was a beautiful message, and there's so much to be learned from these other realms, and I really resonated with a lot of that. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for creating the space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
It kind of reminds me of, when we did that Sunfire, when we did that little video at the Sunfire Fest, and you told a story about your son and on the river, and he was communicating with the rocks, and what the rocks have to say. Everything, the mountains, the rocks, everything has something to say, right?
So true.
And I thought that was a profound message also. The mountain didn't like the tower, and do you remember anything?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was just I was like, when I heard it, was like, whoa, wow. It was powerful to me when I experienced it,
Right.
And,
Yeah.
sometimes he just does that. He'll just tune in and come out with something, and it's like,
Would you be comfortable sharing briefly what happened again for the people who don't know?
Yeah, we decided before the opening ceremony to go connect with the land. And so we grabbed some of the tubes that were offered at the park and got a ride up the road. And we went up, and it was about an hour and a half. We were on the river, tubing down the river. And as we're going down, it was like, oh my gosh, the rocks down there on the side of the mountain, just, they're alive. I mean, you could really feel the vibrations and the history sort of coming, how ancient that place was. And, it was really interesting because I said to him, because I'd already connected with a few people and was honored to do some healings. And I told him, I said, it really feels good to be honored for the gifts that I have to share. It really feels good to me, I'm really glad we're in a place where people can accept this and gain from it. And he goes, that is really cool, Mom, and then he looks at me, he's like, I don't have any gifts. Like, what? What made you think that? Whoa. And he's like, yeah, Mom, I can't do anything. I was like, well, I know something you can do that's extraordinary. And he's like, what? And I'm like, you talk to nature all the time. And he's like, yeah, but whatever, and I'm like, do you know that there's like very few people on this planet who can do that?
Right.
He's like, oh, really? So then, we went in and I said, how about these rocks right here? I mean, they're amazing. Like, do they have anything to say? And then he closed his eyes and let me check. Tuned in. I saw him go inward to his heart and his solar plexus. And he started channeling a message. And the first message that came through is, he said something. Mom said, what? He goes, and I laughed. I was like, oh, okay, well, can you tune in a little bit closer and see if maybe you can hear any words? He goes, okay, tuned in. Oh, yeah, Mom, yeah. Oh, what are they saying? They want us to leave because we're bad. They think we're bad. And I was like, whoa, really? That's not what I was expecting. And, I was like, oh, okay. And I was trying to be thoughtful about how to respond to that, right? And he goes, I know, Mom, I'll tell him that we're good. So he goes, tunes back in, and he opens his eyes and he looks happy and he's like ready to go on the river. And I'm like, well, did they respond? And he goes, yeah, Mom. He said, we're good. We're good.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were going down the river about another 20 minutes or so. And I said, so have you heard any other messages from the rocks? And he goes, yeah, Mom. And that's when he pointed and he follows the ridge line of the rocks down to where the ridge line drops off to the river around the corner for as far as you can see it. And he goes, see that tower right there? I said, yeah, I see it. He goes, they don't like it and they want us to take it down. Good. And then right as he said that, this big winged black bird, very, very, probably a vulture, but I don't know, we weren't close enough, was just circling the tower. And I go, see that bird? And he goes, yeah. And I said, that's nature saying thank you for giving our message to the world.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think you said another friend of yours mentioned that the birds had been showing up to break down the towers and to dismantle that frequency. That was,
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can't remember. That was a friend. Yeah, I think Lily, my friend Lily, brought through that information. She's a galactic superstar for sure. And yeah, she mentioned that when I told her that, she said something about that. The birds were already working on that, trying to break the frequencies down. I think that was her. Or if it came in the journey, I don't remember.
Right. It still resonates though. It's because I think those towers are like I think the towers and the mainstream media are like two of their last playing pieces that are left that I think if dismantled would make a significant difference on this planet. Because that's how they maintain the frequencies that maintain the illusion that allow them to be or pretend to be who they are, So I think it's important that we hear messages like that and understand, even the animals understand it as well,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, that's all that frequency stuff, right? I mean, we need nature frequency.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's what we need to amplify.
Yeah.
Take all our equipment and amplify nature frequency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it.
And okay, brings me to my next point. So in the session that I had with you, a tree showed up and helped, the tree roots helped remove this entity that was attached to me or whatever it was. And it was returning a favor because I had hugged it and helped it heal. And so, and I'm sure this shows up in other sessions as well. Do you see nature returning favors as in the sessions a lot, as far as like a tree or something else showing up and helping the individual out that might have helped them?
That was kind of special. Actually, when you say that, that doesn't happen often, but I think it would. You could intentionally call that out, and I think it would show up. Like you could put out the intention for the healing, like any and all beings that have been supported by this person. Let's say Sarah, we're working on Sarah. Any beings that have been supported or helped by Sarah that would like to show up to support her today, please, come forth and share what you have to share.
Right.
And then that might show up more often. So it's so cool because it's like that one little point, right? And all the stuff, like we covered a lot of ground, and I don't remember it all because I have this default system where I let go of it afterwards so that I don't want to remember it because I don't want to expose you in any way. If we were talking, I was like, oh, remember that time? So I default forget it. And then there's times when people will tell me back what they got from the experience, and then I'll remember it,
Right.
like a dream or something, yeah, so that's actually pretty special.
Well, the reason I brought it up is just the importance of connecting with nature. You never know what can come in return. Like who would have thought that this tree would have shown up in my session and helped me, So there's no way I could have known that unless I had done it. So even when you don't think connecting with a tree is important, it could be. It could be,
Yeah.
very important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is, Aaron, did you have any questions about any of this stuff or the
No, I mean
comments?
it all resonates. It's all amazing. It reminded me of I don't know if you remember Sherry Divban recently talking about one time when she was being attacked heavily and she was trying everything in the book she knew to protect from this lady was like super psychically attacking her like hardcore. Like a woman she knew in real life that she didn't like her for whatever reason. And she called on the animal kingdom, and that's what did it. And then she said all these different animal spirits started coming in, and the lady just went boom, or the lady Astral, whatever it was,
I've totally seen that before.
Like immediately worked, and she's like, she's done it since then, and she's like, it works like a charm every time. She said that's the most powerful thing she knows. So to me, animals, that's their nature as well, right?
Right.
So, I feel like nature and animals are very, very powerful, and it all gets overlooked so much, right?
Right.
Well, they're very intuitive.
Right. Absolutely.
And what did she do? She didn't do anything magical. She didn't do anything that requires training. She asked for help.
Right.
And she believed that asking, she believed that's really all you have to do is ask, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So a while back we were talking and I think you mentioned something about some messages were coming through about the water. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Well, the water, I work with the water a lot.
It was significant enough for you to reach out and say, oh, I had this like profound message about the water on our planet right now, and something was happening with it. And if you can't remember,
okay, yeah, I think I remember. I got a message from the Mother Earth that we're using way too much, and that we need to stop thinking about it like this infinite resource, and stop worrying so much about how we're trashing the earth or how we're polluting the earth, because she can take care of all that. She can mulch it. She can invent even new fungi species and stuff to eat it up. She's not worried so much about that. But she's like, the limited resource that you need to be worried about is water. and really start thinking about how you're using it. Like even in your home, using water more like if you're on a camping trip. And if you don't know how to camp, I don't really know what else to relate that to, but you know, it was like this dire message that, you know, you guys, this is what you need to focus on is the water.
Interesting. I mean, it seems, I mean, since we're a water planet, essentially, it does seem like an infinite recycling resource, right? So I wonder what the significance or what's the reason for using less of it, or maybe it's just our like our sewer water. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, there was examples like you know how we wash all our recycling bottles?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
That was one of the things, like you're using water to clean your trash.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, and then, you know, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, recycling, right? Where does it
Right.
go? Like really, where does it go? Think about it. You know, what are you doing? Like, that's awesome. You want to help the planet, you want to help do your part. Well, then find out what happens after you clean the bottle and throw it into the recycling bin.
Oh,
Don't just throw it in there and be like, oh, I'm helping the planet. You know what I mean? And I know you guys know that, but there's a lot of people out there that just think that's enough.
Mhm.
This message was like, you're washing your trash,
right.
you know?
And then just the manufacturing of all the stuff
all the what? Yeah, that's you.
in our modern society, like it.
Yeah.
I forget. Like I used to read things. It was like, oh, it takes this many gallons of water just to make this one thing. And that's like, so when you look at it that way, it's like, wow, we're wasting so much water just like making stuff, you know?
And then look at we're mixing it with pesticides and then spraying it all over these crops. And like, so there's a lot of wasteful ways that we're using water. And I think the message was to be more mindful and start using water in a wiser way.
Right.
And even like the water that we put into our bodies and drink. And, you know, like I've been experimenting with ozone. I got one of those ozone machines, and this ozone in my water. It is
Nice.
amazing. It's like this amazing discovery. I'm so excited. I'm like cleaning everything with it. And my son had a bloody nose a couple weeks ago, and some of the blood got on the floor, and I sprayed it with the ozone water and I left it. And when I came back, it was completely gone.
Wow.
There was no trace, no ring, nothing.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, you know, we're treating water here in America with fluoride and chlorine, right?
And a bunch of other crap.
And then there's other countries that are using ozone or reverse osmosis or other means that are way healthier for the water. And thinking about what kind of water we should be using is spring-like water, you know, that's been to a mountain and all the minerals and cleansed and remineralized and restructured. All of our water should look like that, right?
Yeah, that's the water for drinking and for cooking, there's a spring about an hour away that we once every couple of weeks go to and fill up a bunch of jugs, and that's the water we use now. We had a reverse osmosis system, and as long as that we don't have anymore, but it just makes it into like
right?
It makes it into like distilled water where there's just nothing in it, but then if you want minerals, then you got to add it back in. Well, the spring water already has all that, and it's living water with, you know, living stuff and good stuff and minerals, and so that's what we use. Yeah.
And then like reconstructing our rivers and our waterways, because I think I read it was in Switzerland that has done that. Switzerland, I think it's Switzerland. I don't know. Have like regenerated their rivers. So they built them in a way to support nature, the flow, the growth of certain plants that filter the water as the river flows through it, and putting the rocks in specific spaces to, you know, support all the wildlife.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're regenerating the rivers. You know, there's so many ways, like, you know, and I know you guys know, I mean, it's not anything new. I'm not sharing anything new, but, you know, urban forests and turning your garden into a natural wild habitat for things. And then all of that plant material, you know, changing the atmosphere the, pulling the CO2 out of and then cleaning up the skies and allowing for us to have cleaner rain. And I mean, it's so simple.
Right.
It's so simple. It's all just nature. It's all natural things. Yeah. But we're so conditioned into the modern what we think we have to do. And I have to maintain this lawn that just is grass that I cut every
Right.
And it's like, well, and we're talking about food shortages and all, but all that's connected to the matrix system that has, we have to manufacture the food and we have to process it and ship it and you buy it, you pay money for it and it was like, well, what if everyone just grew their own food in their own yards?
Yeah.
And you could literally just walk around and eat the food for free that's all over the place,
Yeah,
but instead
a great world.
Instead we're outsourcing all that to that's only these companies can and farmers can do that, and then they have to ship it somewhere else, and then we have to go somewhere and buy it, and then it's like all these like middle steps in between, and then money to buy, and it's like, well, you could literally seeds grow food, you could grow it yourself, and obviously there's people, we have gardens, and there are some people that are starting to grow all their own food or most of it, and it's like that's starting to get more and more in humanity's consciousness of like, wait a second, we can grow our own food. I can be off the grid and self-sustainable. It's possible. Wait, this is how we're supposed to live. It's like we're starting to wake back up to and like out of this matrix and realizing this is how we're supposed to live.
Right. It's difficult though for a lot of people, like myself. Even if I wanted to plant a garden, I travel so much, and it's like you leave for your trip and you come back, and then everything's dead, and
you have to have somebody else take care of it.
That's okay. You can eat the food from your neighbor's garden.
Right. Yeah. Well, if everyone's doing it, right?
If everyone's doing it.
Right. Yeah. If enough people are allowed to do it, because some people have been shut down that have tried to do that. They've been arrested.
And they're
in their yards.
Right. Depending on where you live.
But yeah, I mean, the message for the water was from the Mother Earth that I channeled was like that. Have you ever seen Tank Girl, the movie?
No.
Oh my gosh, you guys have to make a note. Tank Girl. Oh my gosh, it's based off an old comic, has Lori Petty in it, and actually I think Ice-T is in it, plays like a kangaroo mutation. And yeah, it's about water power and how she like goes up against water power. And it's really good. It's a great movie, but that's kind of the message. It's like let's be more mindful and respectful of the water. I felt like it was a message like, you know what, if you guys don't start being more conscious about this and taking care of this resource, I'm going to cut it off.
Right.
Like the mom going, you're not going to get this anymore if you don't start showing respect.
Right. Well, it's like it goes back to doing everything with intention. It reminds me like the old way of the samurai or the Japanese ancient arts and stuff, where like they wake up, every single move they make is done with intention. And you watch them even like ladling water or whatever. It's all done like in ritual ceremony way, but it's all done with respect and honor. And it's just a way, like you said, we take everything for granted now. We don't even think about where all this stuff is coming from. Like I did watch a video one time that this person asked a child, where does your food come from? And he said the store,
right.
And like, we think that their food comes from the store, and it's like, it's really interesting. We're just, we're not in harmony with nature anymore like we should be. That's just the gist of it. And a lot of us are trying. I'm not saying like all of us, right? Because there's a lot of us that are re-exploring and expanding into that realm again. But and as a whole, I think that that's the direction we need to head, which is pretty obvious to me. But some people are kind of like addicted to the technology and the AI and stuff coming in, and they're really excited about all the new tech, and they're moving back into the cities, which I find really interesting. And it's like they're unconsciously making a choice to go let the grid and the matrix support them instead of Mother Nature. And I think that's where we're at right now. People are either there's a bifurcation happening.
Let's accept that and honor it, and let's make these little hubs. Right. Okay. Here's this little city hub. You want that life? That's what you want. You want to be fed. You want to be told how to think. You don't want to think about where this stuff goes or whatever. You don't want to take the time to catch me. Okay. Go live there. That's your little hub. And that's the only place where like
Right.
if you and I were in the country, like we have to go there to access Wi-Fi. We'd have to go there to access our phones.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's
Like-
a place like so we're not all inundated with it.
Like
It's
you have the
just
free will to live. If that's how you want to
it's like
live,
the
then
mall.
go
Yeah.
for it. Right.
It's
But
like the mall. Okay, go to the
if you want to
mall.
live this way, you can live in this community over here
Yeah,
that's living close to
exactly.
nature and self-sustainable. And
Yeah,
it's
but have the majority be that, right? And I
right.
think if there was more of that, more people would choose that. I think
Right.
that if nature was more supported and honored and respected and we were living in harmony with it, more people would want to be there,
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. It's
So
yeah. I mean, there's something to be said about that, and it's really sad to me what I see happening with all the trees being cut down everywhere, even in my neighborhood. It's like these tree services come in, and it's like they're knocking on people's doors, like convincing them that their trees need to be cut down, and all of a sudden, all the big, mature, beautiful trees are gone, and we're just back down to this shrubbery again, and it's like something's missing, something's off. There's an imbalance. And like
Right.
in Sarasota, Florida, this woman on the beach was telling us how they cut down all these amazing pine trees that were creating all this beautiful shade and all this stuff just to put a parking lot in for more beach parking.
that's the
And
worst.
Yeah.
and
Such an insult.
and a lot of
Right.
people were petitioning it and everything, but it didn't matter. They still did it, and they gained like some insignificant amount of parking spots, and they just destroyed all these trees that people were
Wow.
camping and picnicking under, and all the stuff. And it was just part of the beauty of the area. So, that's the one sad thing that really upsets me. I'm just like, why are you cutting down all these trees?
Well, that's a perfect example of the modern like mind control society of the Matrix of money is the most important thing over anything else, right?
Right.
Nature,
And convenience.
yeah, money and
Right.
convenience,
Yeah.
and that's all that matters. And then all the decisions are being made from that priority and perspective, and that's horrible, But there's people that's their priority, They're like, yeah, this is great, they're not even thinking that way,
Right.
It's just where people are at, and like Jennifer, like you said, okay, great. Well, the way I see the future going is like you're going to have a choice based on what you choose where you're at. If you want to live in a city that's like that, great, go for it.
Yeah.
But eventually people are more and more going to be waking up and realizing like, this is horrible. This is not right. This is not serving.
Or maybe they just stay plugged in and
Or they just stay for that lifetime, and that's how that but then there's
Right.
going to be these other communities closer to nature, and I think ET contact is going to be happening in those where people are at a certain
they're here.
frequency. They're already here, but I'm just saying more
Yeah,
in mass, like they'll be walking among us like openly without having to just do this more in the background kind of thing.
Speaking of the ET contact, and then we'll let you go after this, but you mentioned that they also come through the sessions as well. Is there any
a lot
specific
lately, actually. Yeah.
any specific ones like beings, races that come through?
Yeah. I can share the biggest one that I had. There's a big one that came through.
Sure.
And I'm not going to give names, but it is a mutual contact, Tyler, that we have, and I'm sure she'd be happy to share it with you. But let me see what okay. Yeah. So a week before the solar eclipse that we just had, was that May? It was in May, right?
April.
Was it April?
Yeah,
It was April. Okay. So a week before that, I had the session and started talking with a being that came in with her. And it was I'm sure you guys have heard this before. The black shadow,
Mhm.
people talk about the black shadow. Well, I'm very familiar with the black shadow. I used to see them when I was a teenager, the black shadow people. Sometimes that one spirit that was harassing me for a while showed up as a black shadow. I understand that. I know that frequency. This was different. But this one was a white shadow people. Okay. That started talking to me. And I was like, okay, there's somebody here. And I started interpreting for this being. And it told me that its race had been tricked by our government, by the people ruling our government, them, whatever.
Yeah.
Particularly in relationship, I think, to CERN. And this being said, that it was a representative, like a speaker for its race, and that there were 12 others, so this was a 13th. And it told me that it got tricked. They were making a deal with these people that say they are the representatives for our people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And made some kind of an exchange, a trade, an agreement. And it said that they honored their part of it, this race, and then what do you want to call it? Them, our government, our ruling parties, or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They sucked the entire race of their species here. They sucked them through.
Wow.
They pulled them through to our planet.
Oh, wow.
But they didn't have any of their stuff. They just tricked them and sucked them all through. And then when they all got here, they realized they couldn't survive here. My battery's getting low. So what they had to do was latch onto us to suck off of our life force energy. They did not want to do that in any way, and they had no intention of harming us in any way. But they said it's like a battery, like using another battery, and it was draining some of us. I don't know if you noticed, like people around that event was like, oh, I'm so tired for like months afterwards. Oh, I'm so tired. I don't know what's wrong with me. I was hearing it all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it together later. I was like, oh, but so what he ended up doing was communicating to me how to help them get back. And he said, the problem with it, he said they're all over the world. And I say he because it felt very masculine, but this white representative, 13 of the 12, all the other ones that they were speaking for the race were black shadows. So he ended up taking me to a tree. I'll keep a little of this location secret because I haven't found it yet, and I'm very curious about it. And said that this particular spot on the earth is still in the blank. It's still in the dark. There's no surveillance on it. And then this plate raised out of the ground, and the sand and dirt slid off of it, and it was a half dome kind of. And I was standing in the middle of it, and it kind of looked like a spelum drum, like a handpan drum with the little lines. And then this being told me to start toning. So I started toning and like doing all this stuff. And then this vortex opened up, this huge flower of life symbol, like projected over the sky. And this whole thing's turned on like a machine. And then all of the black shadows, these connections of this speaker's race, all started coming from all directions, hundreds of them, going up this tube-like vortex, past this flower of life symbol, just moving. And I was just watching it. Oh, okay. And I'm working with my client, and I do body work too. So I'm like doing the body work, and I'm like waiting for this to, to go. And then when all the black ones were clear, the rest of the 12 of the white speakers showed up, and they spoke to me, and they were super grateful for the help. They did tell me that this took a very big surge off of the people that they were attached to, but that they would recover. Whereas if they didn't leave, the people would eventually die or they would die. So it was like me or you kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so they told me that they were very grateful for the help of getting back to their planet and that they were coming back and that they are PISSED
Wow.
our leaders. And while they were here, saw what they're doing to us and trying to kill us the way they were killing them by draining our batteries of life force energy. So they said, we're going to come back. We're on your side and we're going to help you. And we're going to get them, basically.
Nice.
Then what really blew my mind is after I got back from the, I went to Texas for the solar eclipse. And when I got back about a week later, I saw this thing. I don't even know where it is now. It was through some feed somewhere across the internet. And this guy was showing how there was a trade agreement between an alien species and those people that say they're in charge of us, not for long, and said that the thing they traded was AI technology.
Right.
And I'm like, whoa. It was just like him, like, wait. And then showed that during the solar eclipse, there was this whole event that happened that they allowed a ship to come through. And that the ship went underwater near Antarctica and caused this huge wave pattern that went up the coast to Africa and drew the ocean away.
Yeah.
You
Right.
saw that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's that anomaly in the water. Yeah. And the radar and all that stuff.
And so I saw that. And then I think it was like a couple hours later and I went, wait, is that them? Is that the species that I just helped sent home with the help of this client that she brought them and I was able to interpret and help them access the code or whatever, that they went home? And did they come back a week later?
Yeah.
Like
right.
that fast, right? In our
Yeah.
time. So I don't know. It gives me this huge sense of peace that they are here helping us.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Now, this race, these beings, what did they look like? Did you say?
They only showed up to me in like
Light?
shadowy.
Okay.
But
Right.
it was white. The representatives were white. And then their race was all looked
Right.
like black shadows.
Interesting. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And nothing would surprise me anymore. And I had a feeling there was a lot more that happened during the eclipse than we all really could comprehend or were even able to see or perceive.
Mhm.
And, stuff like that makes sense to me. It wasn't going to be like the surface level catastrophic event that everyone was making out to be. But I do believe that there were energetic things taking place. So that does resonate. And thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
It was, profound when I was experiencing it because, she came in with her intention. I had no intention of speaking with any alien races or anything. I don't know, it was an intention for healing, and
Right.
and then that thing just started speaking to me. I think part of her thing was that she was low energy and feeling like she was, and so this is like, yeah, hi, that's me. Sorry.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
draining her battery.
Oh, interesting.
So in order to help her with her healing to feel more energized, we had to clear that being from her space.
Well, and that also just goes to show that like nothing is black and white right now in this spiritual war. Like things change in the fog of war. And so if you think something's going one direction in this blink of an eye, something can change. And the circumstances change, situations change, the plans change. And that's why nothing makes sense. We can't predict anything anymore. I mean, literally it can change on a dime. So it's, I just think anything and everything is possible at this point. And, there's timeline wars and time manipulation. It's a temporal war. There's just all kinds of things happening. So I think we're just along for the ride at this point,
Yeah. I think that's
we're creating it. We're creating, like, we have to understand we're a part of this. Like we're creating the future as well based on our state and what we do. And
right.
So it's a combination of like I think understand the light's already won. It's just things are playing out, but understand we're a part of how it's going to play out, how long it's going to take, what's going to happen. Like we're actively a part of that as well, and that's why we're here during this time. And just realize there is nothing to fear. So stay out of fear, because there is nothing to fear. You're an eternal being, that you're temporarily having this experience, but I do think it's we on a higher level wanted to be here at this time, came here specifically at this time to be a part of this shift. And it's exciting, it's actually, so instead of looking at it as like, oh, it's crazy and it's fear, I'm afraid of what's going to happen. It's like, no, it's exciting. We get to be a part of this.
No, maybe not be a part of it, maybe be the shift.
Be the shift. Right.
Yeah.
But to be here for it is what I'm saying. Like it's exciting and that we get to be a part of it.
For people who are in that fear or feel like they're being attacked, yeah, that's why like I'm here and other people like me are here. I had a teacher too that tried to kill me.
Oh wow.
Psychically. And it took me months to be able to shake that. But I think that, like Tyler, what you were saying, I had this thing and I kept doing all these things and it wasn't helping. And that happens. And I think that's because sometimes we can't see it in our own field.
Right.
But just know something's off. And it's like, follow that and then see where that leads you. Like something's off, and then be open to allowing someone to walk into your life to help you with it. And they will. That person will show up with that intention, but sometimes we do need help. I need help. I go to other people to help me with things where I'm like, you know what? There's something here and I can't see it. I don't know what it is. Can you help me? And then someone else will see something completely different from what I could see.
And
yeah, we're all helping each other. Exactly.
Yeah. And speaking of help, how can people reach out to you if they would like to book a session or connect with you?
Well, I'm kind of in a transitional stage right now in my practice where I'm seeing less people in person. And I want to start shifting to more work like this, sort of just online, because I'm a full-time single parent. And I want to help more people in this way, what we did here today. I do a ton of body work and I mix this work in with the body work, but I also want to be able to start offering it this way. So right now I'm sort of in a transitional phase of setting that up to be able to be available to people long distance,
right?
Like what we did here today. But so that's not quite set up yet, but if they want to contact me, my website is just my name.com, jenafrey.com. And my email is jenafrey@outlook.com. So you can get a hold of me through those means. And as far as bodywork goes, I want to keep putting that beacon out, but I have more. I can't see all the people right now that are trying to get on my schedule.
Right.
And I started a class because I want to try to make myself more available, start showing people how to do it to themselves, how to release your fascia in your body. That's a whole nother subject. How to release your own fascia in your body and support your fascia so that you can be pain-free.
I will say that was one of the most unique things I thought about what you did was that you incorporated the body work, like it was a full body massage in with the energy work, and then both were just as incredible. And like you were able to release the energy in certain areas where there was blockages, whatever. It was something I never quite experienced before. I thought that was half of the magic of it. So I would encourage you to at least keep doing some of that because you're doing something very unique that not many people are doing. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if people want to get in to see me physically, it's just, it's book ahead. It's a few months.
Right.
Wait, but you can book through my website, jenafrey.com, schedule appointment. And I mean, touching the body like that, your body has so many things to say. I can find so many things through that communication as well. And it is really nice to integrate that physical part because the fascia is a sensory organ.
Right.
So it holds a lot of trauma and stored information in it and frequency.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been an interesting, wild ride, and the dragons came through. Who knew? And it was such an. I mean, that doesn't even seem like the same episode anymore. It feels like we've just like traversed
Right.
time.
Yeah.
So,
Amazing.
thank you so much. This has been great, and we can't. Thank you to the audience for tuning in, and make sure you check out Jena's website. She's doing some incredible stuff. Don't overwhelm her, but.
Yeah.
I definitely
I'm just trying to keep up too.
right. Sure.
Right.
Sure. And yeah, just a reminder, guys, our webinar is this Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Time. It's only $5 to sign up for the Patreon. If you haven't done that, it's going to be a great one. We're really excited about it. So all that information is below in the description, and Jena's links will be below as well. And until next time, have a great evening. We love you all. Good night.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.